Let's predict what the offensive two deep is going to look like for the Aggies this season.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we have an article to run through where we're going to predict Texas A&M's starting lineup. An article from Aggies Wire. And I'll tell you, there are some surprises in this two deep. We're going to run through them. And I think the first and overall number one surprise is who they have listed as the backup at wide receiver. And this is a little crazy. So let's start at wide receiver. At the starter, at wide receiver X, they have listed Jaylen Walker. Who is listed as the projected backup, you might ask? Terry Bussey. Yes, that is correct. That is the Terry Bussey who is projected to be the potential starter in the cornerback room. And will he potentially have a role on both sides of the football? Hey, there's been some leaked video on, well, once again, it's almost, was it strategic, on social media from the football program of him in the color jersey of offense. So he's been practicing with the offense. And Coach Elko hasn't been like hiding this information. He's been very candid. Like, we're going to use him to the best of his ability. We're going to see what he can do on offense. So, here's where I wouldn't say an issue, but here's where I have questions about Terry Bussey and his what the offense is going to look like for him. My question is this: is he going to be legitimately in the two deep at receiver, or is he going to be a guy that comes in and plays 4 or 5 gadget snaps on offense where you throw him a screen or he gets a couple end rounds? You use his speed, you use his elusiveness, you use his shiftiness to your as a strength. And I think that is going to be one of the more interesting parts of the whole. Hey, we're going to use Terry Bussey on offense. So the little blurb here says this. And of course, like I said, Jaylen Walker is going to be the starter there. Then the contending names are Jacob Bostic, the Iowa transfer, and then the freshman Ashton Bethel-Roman. It says Jaylen Walker's drop issues quickly disappeared last season, finishing second on the team with 590 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, while becoming a security blanket for former backup quarterback Max Johnson in key moments on the stretch. Walker returns size, athleticism, and a large catch radius to the depth chart. Lacking notable depth at the X receiver spot, former 5-star athlete Terry Bussey has shined this fall and might be too good not to see time at wide receiver. While former Iowa wide receiver Jacob Bostic looks like the second option behind Walker due to his equal size, length, and catch radius. So I agree. I think Bostic's doing some good stuff. I think Jaylen Walker's the guy. Would I go as far as to say that Terry Bussey is the projected backup at the X receiver? I wouldn't. But I still think that he's going to get snaps at receiver. I do. I believe that he's going to have snaps at receiver. I believe he's going to have receptions. I believe he's going to have carries. They're going to use him because he is a star. They're going to find a way to use him. In segment 2 today, we're going to break down who I believe is going to be quarterback 2 on this roster. So, we're not going to get deep into quarterbacks. Obviously, Connor Wigg was listed as the starter. I want to save QB2 talk for segment 2. So now we have wide receiver Z, projected starter, Noah Thomas, no surprise there. Projected backup, Cyrus Allen, the Louisiana Tech transfer. And listed here as contending names is the freshman Isaiah Williams. So no real surprises in this section here. Noah Thomas is the guy. Cyrus Allen is the guy who we expect to come in and play significant snaps for this team. He seems to be really playing well so far as we kind of at the end of the summer and as we head into fall practice, we really get ready to rock and roll for the season. He's a guy that is turning heads. He's a guy that's playing well. So Cyrus Allen, I wouldn't be surprised to see him be wide receiver 4, maybe 5 on this roster. We're going to have a little Jabri Barber conversation here in a second. But I think Cyrus Allen's playing football, playing some really good football right now. Then at wide receiver at slot, you've got Moose listed as the starter, Cyrus Allen listed as the backup. And then in contending names, you got Micah Tease and Jabri Barber. Listen, I'll tell you one thing. Micah Tease, I have heard some wonderful things about the way he's playing in practice. He is making some incredible catches. He's going to be a star. He's going to have a role this season, but next year, I'm telling you all this, is when he's going to truly break out onto the scene. Micah Tease has a great career ahead of him at Texas A&M, and I think he's the guy that could move on to the next level. So I think he has a role this year. I don't know if I would have Cyrus Allen listed as the backup at both spots here. I think Jabri Barber and Cyrus Allen are both guys you can move inside and outside a receiver. I think they've kind of got the build, the speed, the athleticism, the shiftiness to play all around. I would list Jabri Barber as the projected backup at one of these spots, just because once he's healthy, it's going to take him a little bit of time. As I said, there's a chance that he misses that first game, maybe the second, but I'd say by Florida game for sure, Jabri Barber's back on the field. Then we go to tight end, and this is kind of what we talked about on the show yesterday, ladies and gentlemen. Projected starter, Trey Watson, projected backup, Donovan Green. This is how I feel at this point. I think that heading into the season, Trey Watson is going to be the starter. I think he is. I think he's playing well. I think he's doing a good job catching the football. He's helping blocking. But then you've got your Shane Calhoun, your Garrett Miller, your Theo Mellon-Orstrom to help block. And then Donovan Green's your backup. Now, I still am a believer that as Green gets fully back into the swing of things, maybe week 5, 6, he's going to kind of take over because I believe he is going to be the dude. But I think when it comes to starting the season, I'm kind of thinking Trey Watson is going to be listed as, or he's going to be the starter. Then we go to offensive line, left tackle, projected starter, Trey Zune. No surprise there. Projected backup, Ruben Fothry. And then contending names is Ashton Funk, the freshman, a guy who has great size. He's going to be a great player, but once again, you don't want offensive line starting as freshman if you can avoid that at all possibilities. Then at left guard, no surprise here. You got Chase Basantis. Then you got his projected backup being Aki, who is a guy who I believe can play some serious football at some point. I think he's got some serious upside. Ogunbayi, he's a player that I think is going to have a role for this team. They talked about potentially moving players in and out of the lineup, so that'll be interesting. Then in contending names is TJ Shanahan, a guy that we've heard did well in the spring, and now he's working his way and playing well here in the fall as well. Then at center, this is where I get a little, I wouldn't say surprised, but I've seen a lot of people kind of go the other way here. He's got Kali Fui, the Utah transfer, listed as the starter. I agree with that. I think I still like going that way. He's then got Mark Naboo listed as the projected backup and Cam Dewberry listed as the 3D for contending names. Then at right guard, he's got Mark Naboo starting with Cam Dewberry as the projected backup and TJ Shanahan as a projected name. Now, this is where it gets interesting. He's got Armaj Reed-Adams over here at right tackle. And Armaj Reed-Adams has played really well. He's really getting people excited. He's going to have a good season. And then Ruben Fothery is the backup there, and Demetrius Crownover as a contending name. I think that offensive line I really like because I love the depth you now have a tackle with Crownover and Fothery on your bench. And then I like the depth you have with Shanahan and Dewberry inside. I think that offensive line gives you elite depth and a ton of experience with Trey Zune, Armaj Reed Adams, Naboo, who's played a lot of football. Colley's played a good amount of football. And then Basantis has played a year of football. So you've got some experience on this offensive line. I think that is a solid offensive line unit that could really win, take Texas A&M to that level that I've said. Once again, you are not asking for the best unit in the world. You're just asking for it to get by, and I think that unit can do it. Who's going to be QB2 on this roster? We're going to have that conversation coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But it is time to tell you about our wonderful friends over at Game Time. Game Time is the best place and the only place you should ever buy tickets to anything. I'm going to a baseball game a week from yesterday on Tuesday of next week. And where do I buy my tickets? Should be pretty simple at this point. Game Time. I love the app. It is simple to use. What do I do every time I buy tickets? I like to move around the stadium when I buy tickets to everything: football, baseball, basketball, hockey, whatever I'm going to. I like to buy different tickets because I think it's fun to see what's the best seat in the house. And then maybe once I find it, I'll start sitting there. So I'm going to this baseball game, and that's what I did. I used the app to be able to see what these different seat views look like, and I picked what I thought was the best seat. We're going to sit in left field, right on the wall. Great price. Got to check out Game Time. So if you go to, well, first of all, if you always take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets, MLB tickets, any kind of tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, the lowest prices guaranteed. Also want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket for YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook, and of course, the official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. So I want to break down QB2 because we have not gotten an official word yet. But I think what would be great here, let's read this article or the quote here where they have from Aggies Wire, where they have Jaylen Henderson listed as the projected backup. And I'll tell you my thoughts. So let's read. Who will back him up is another question. As Jaylen Henderson and Marcel Reed have been neck and neck all month, but Henderson still holds the advantage in experience. I disagree here. I believe that Marcel Reed is going to end up being the backup. Now, I have been called a Jaylen Henderson hater, and I don't really know why. I think he's great, but I look at the upside possessed by Marcel Reed, and I think it's through the roof. I think Marcel Reed is a guy who can just flat out be incredible for this football team if he's called upon. Now, once again, I think the same can be said for Jaylen Henderson. That's what you got to remember here. I think Jaylen Henderson is a guy who can be really, really, really good. I mean, we saw him do it last year. I mean, he was great. He was great, truly, in the absence of Max Johnson, who was playing in the absence of Connor Wigman. Jaylen Henderson was all around incredible. But Marcel Reed, I just think his upside is better. I think his upside is higher. I would love, I mean, it's truly a great problem to have. And I don't think there's many. I mean, this is why Texas A&M, I think it was, I believe by On3 was ranked as a top 10, quarterback unit in college football. These two guys are why. Marcel Reed and Jaylen Henderson are two of the better backup quarterbacks. And I'll tell you this, whoever ends up being QB3, good luck finding a better QB3 in college football. Both of these guys would start at a lot of Power 4 schools. I mean, a lot of them. So, good luck. Seriously, good luck finding somebody, a better QB3 for whoever ends up being QB3. I agree with what Aggies Wire is saying here, that Henderson has more experience, because he does. It's true. But I believe when it comes to upside and when it comes to who would you want down the road, before, listen, Hassan Longstreet's going to be coming. He's your QB of the future when it comes to recruiting. So Connor Wigman is the Wigman's moving on to the NFL after the season steam continues to pick up. And so I kind of look at this and I say to myself, okay, if that happens, more than likely either Henderson or Reed is going to start for you next season. So the question is, first of all, you don't want to lose either of them, because what you would love, and obviously you still got Miles O'Neal as well, and we'll have to see what happens, what he turns into. We'll have to see what he becomes, So that'll be, interesting. He was obviously part of the previous regime's recruiting class. So does Colin Klein, is he a guy that, he wants? Like we'll have to see there. I've heard he's doing well. I'm just saying, long term, is he the guy? And I'm not sure there. But, it would be a lot of fun to watch Marcel Reed and Jaylen Henderson fully compete next season for QB1. And who would win that? I think it'd be really, really close. Y'all know before Ruben Owens was done with injury, how I talked about how the difference in the running back room, and I went 51-49, and that's kind of where we're at. I think that 51-49 is right here as well with the quarterback room. And I think if you're on the Henderson side of things, I get it. If you're on the Marcel Reed side of things, I get it. I lean very, very, very narrowly toward Marcel Reed being the backup. And I do believe that if Connor Wigman has the season that I believe he's going to have this year, where he does move on. I actually was scrolling and saw the mock draft yesterday. Now, this was a TikTok mock draft. We're not going to act like this was, came from a crazy big draft place, but had Connor Wigman going 9th overall. Not saying there's a lot of credit there. I'm simply saying, people are really starting to buy into the Connor Wigman is going to be a first-round pick hype. And if that happens, one of those guys is going to be your guy next year. So you'd like to keep them both on the roster, because if you don't, and Connor Wigman does move on to the NFL, then whichever one stays likely is your starter next season. And then Miles O'Neal and Hassan Longstreet are, QB2, QB3, and you're kind of going, oh man, where are we at? Hassan Longstreet's a freshman. What do we have in Miles O'Neal? We're not really sure. So you're kind of fighting that mental battle. And that'll be, kind of an interesting part of next season. But who ends up being QB2 or for this roster is a question that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. I really don't. It's not a conversation I've heard. And it's an important one, knowing what it's been like injury-wise for the Aggies at quarterback. I mean, Texas A&M can't keep a quarterback healthy. Who QB2 is until that ends, till that narrative is gone of we can't keep a quarterback healthy, until that narrative ends, I think who QB2 is matters a lot. And who QB3 is matters a lot. So you're very fortunate on this roster to have 3 elite quarterbacks, in my opinion, 3 guys who can play football at a very, very high level. But once again, I am going to be predicting Marcel Reed to win the job as QB2 on this roster, but it's close and it'll be interesting to see who wins it. So let me know in the YouTube comments, who would you all like to see as QB2 for the future? And then who do you think is going to end up being QB2? Let me know those things in the YouTube comments. I want to collect some thoughts, discuss some things about the Notre Dame game, because on Friday, we're going to really break this game down. So we're going to talk about it coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. Sandals, sunscreen, snacks for the kids. What do these have in common? You're probably buying a ton again this summer, but don't stress about the cost. Use Ibotta and get cash back on all of your purchases when you stock up on all of your summer essentials. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you are purchasing. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and start earning cash back. And use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's Ibotta, IBOTTA, in the Google Play or Apple Store, and use code LOCKEDONCollege. So I want to talk about this Notre Dame game, and I want to hear your all's thoughts on it again. Y'all know sometimes in segment 3, I kind of like to just a little bit break down my thoughts on something and hear what y'all have to say, and we'll talk about it deeper. So Friday, we're going to really break down this game. Probably not the whole show, probably segment 1. And then, of course, next week, hey, it's football time, and we're breaking down. We'll have more than likely have a crossover. We'll more than likely break down keys to a victory, position battles to watch. I mean, we're going to break it down top to bottom. This game is going to be crucial for the Aggies. But, I mean, my original thoughts here is I think that the play in the trenches is going to make or break this game. I think both, especially with the injury that Notre Dame suffered at left tackle, I think both of these teams have question marks at offensive line. I do, and then I think that both of these teams have dominant, elite defensive lines. So how Texas A&M's offensive line matches up with the D-line of Notre Dame and the vice versa, the D-line of A&M versus the O-line of Notre Dame, is going to make or break this football game. They've got some talented players in the secondary. They've got some solid receivers. This is a really good Notre Dame football team. Riley Leonard, I think he's a good quarterback. Do I think he's elite? I'm not sure yet. I think he needs to prove that still. And so does Connor Wigman. You know what I mean? Once again, Connor Wigman has to prove it as well. But I'd take Connor Wigman over Riley Leonard. I would any day of the week, twice on Thursday. I mean, seriously, I would take him any day of the week. So the way I kind of break this game down is I think the trenches is going to be huge. It's going to be massive. It is going to make or break this football game. It really, really is. So I'm definitely monitoring that. Quarterback play is going to be huge. I think those are the two most significant things. I think you've got two quarterbacks who are both really good. One I think's better, but he's got to prove it. So who wins that quarterback battle and then who wins in the trenches, I believe, wins this football game. Let me know, what does Texas A&M have to do to win this football game? And we will break that down on Friday's show. On Thursday's show tomorrow, we're going to break down the defensive projected two deep. Who's going to start on defense? Who's in the two deep on defense? We'll break that down on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Aggies. But that's going to do it for today's show. Really, really appreciate y'all being here every single day. Keep hitting that subscribe button. Keep hitting that like button. It helps the show a ton. Really, really appreciate y'all. Hope everyone has an outstanding rest of their Wednesday, and we'll see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Aggies.